Thanks for having us and for taking the time to lend some of your expertise and wisdom. Now, I want to talk about the concept of servant leadership, something we often discuss in scouting, and we learn in scouting training, the notion that a strong leader wants to serve first and be a leader second. So did that come into play in your decision to be Defense Secretary, the notion of servant leadership?
I don't think I ever thought of it in those terms. When I was growing up and for most of my career and when I was in Scouts, I was never familiar with that term. It was just leadership. And what has become known as servant leadership, to me, is first of all, subordinating one's ego to getting the job done, and then second, looking out for the people who either work for you or with whom you are working.
Well, taking care of people is something that you really distinguished yourself with in your time as Defense Secretary, going out and talking to troops on the front lines, and that was something you were often publicly praised for. So is that important for a leader to be visible like that? And talk about the value of a leader really being seen among the people.
I think it's actually more than that. There are a lot of people who go out and sort of hit the hustings, if you will, and so on. My experience as a university president and as Secretary of Defense is that young people, and perhaps almost everyone, is pretty skeptical of rhetoric from senior leaders, and that what really matters is deeds. What matters are actions that over a period of time build a pattern that people look at and say to themselves and to others, okay, he or she is the real deal. This person really is looking out for me.
I want to talk a little bit about your time in scouting, and you obviously have served a number of positions of responsibility, as we call it in scouting, at a national level. But back when you were in scouting, to earn Eagle Scout, you had to serve in a number of leadership roles there as well. Is it important to expose young people to leadership at an early age, and how do they benefit from that later in their lives?
Well, I think it's critical to give young people, to give kids the opportunity to learn how to lead. It's not easy. In fact, I open the last chapter of my newest book on leadership by talking about being in Boy Scout Troop 522 in Wichita, Kansas, and that nothing teaches leadership skills like being in charge of a bunch of 12 and 13-year-old kids and trying to get them to do what they don't want to do, and you can't make them do it. And it was a lot like dealing with Congress. And I'll tell you, the leadership skills that I learned when I was 12 and 13 and 14 were the basis of everything I subsequently did.
Does the value of becoming an Eagle Scout mean as much today as it did back then?
First of all, they're not getting the same Eagle Scout award that I got. In contrast to so many things in life today, getting your Eagle today is a lot harder than it was when I became an Eagle. In terms of what it means, it's the same. In terms of, whether you're 15 or whether you're 75, you still have the same Eagle badge and you still have the same values. And they are the values that you were taught as a Scout and in becoming an Eagle Scout. There was an article not a few years ago in the Wall Street Journal on how college admissions officers are now looking at the Eagle Award as a leading indicator, as perhaps the most significant indicator of likely success in college, because it shows that at age 12 or 13 or 14, this young man had the persistence, the discipline, and the long-term perspective of accomplishing a goal that is 2 or 3 years off to be able to accomplish that. And they look at that and say, that kid's likely to be successful.
And it matters in the military too. So why is it that Eagle Scouts start at a higher grade when they enter the military? What's the rationale behind that? I know that even preceded your time as secretary.
I think it's mainly because of the skill sets they bring. Actually, just a couple of years or so ago, I gave a graduation address, if you will, to more than 100 new Green Berets at Fort Bragg. And I went out and visited the training sites for the aspiring Green Berets, those who were trying to qualify. And I was talking to some of their instructors, and I said, can you tell the difference between a kid who was in the Boy Scouts and one who wasn't? And he looked at me like I'd lost my mind. He said, of course. They know how to do most of this stuff already. You know, in terms of making a bed in the wilderness of leaves and how to use a shelter half and just a whole host of different things.
Well, I appreciate it. That was excellent.
Thank you.